The alarm was raised with police 2 days ago by a friend of the missing Sydney couple after they failed to return home as expected last Sunday.
What we can imagine is that they're stuck somewhere for whatever reason, that they perhaps hurt themselves, either one, and they can't leave each other.
25-year-old Peter O'Malley and girlfriend Bernae Ellison, 24, had planned a week-long bushwalking and hitchhiking holiday in and around the Barrington Tops, 70 kilometres west of Gloucester. They'd left behind a detailed itinerary of their movements.
And actually saying on the notes, see you next Sunday. If we're not back by then, or have called you by Sunday night, start to worry.
It's believed they travelled by train to Gloucester on Sunday, September 26th, then hitchhiked to Gloucester Tops National Park and walked 45 kilometres to Barrington Tops, crossing extremely dense terrain. Police say Bernae and Peter are experienced bushwalkers and have adequate supplies. But with temperatures falling to almost zero at night, fears for their safety are growing.
If they're following water courses and there's an intersection at the water course and you take the wrong, you end up in the scrub, you could be anywhere, you know.
Police have set up headquarters in the Barrington Tops where there's been 2 reported sightings. The search intensified today with 30 SES, police, forestry and National Park and Wildlife officers conducting ground and air searches of surrounding bushland. While police are concentrating their search here in the Barrington Tops National Park, they're not ruling out the possibility that with the pair hitchhiking between trekking stops, they may have fallen victims to foul play.
With the recent incident down the south coast or the Southern Highlands, I mean, that's always a possibility, but we're just hoping that hasn't happened. We're just hoping that at this stage they're just lost or at the worst hurt.
Police say they'll continue their search till nightfall, resuming at first light tomorrow.
Up until now, the sight of police on the streets of Muswellbrook generally meant something had happened. There was trouble. But like so many other areas, police are now back walking the beat, saying good day, listening to the community. And the town has welcomed the change.
Well, the people in Muswellbrook, they've taken the beat policing with open arms. You hear comments all the time of how happy they are to see people on the street. You know, they walk down the street, the schools, in and out of the schools. We used to get problems with the school. We used to walk in the school and the kids used to say, well, what are you up here for, drug bust or whatever. Nowadays it's just to sort of walk in the schools in and out and there's sort of no drama. So it's been accepted across the board in Muswellbrook from what I've seen, and we've had good reports back.
Initially, the beat patrols have been drawn from General Duties Police, but there is a longer-term plan for a permanent beat police section. To launch the new initiative, police are staging a display, which has certainly brought the community and the force together. Popular with the younger customers was the chance to be photographed for their own junior passport, a bit of fun, but also a useful identification document. The display is in Muswellbrook's main street, adjacent to Campbell's Corner. It continues this evening and tomorrow. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
Who would want the pressure of being a first-grade coach or manager? For BHP Breakers boss Bruce Stowell, a horror start to the new National Soccer League season with injuries and clearance wrangles not allowing him to finalise his squad. His main concern, Brad Maloney, chasing a contract in Europe.
At this stage, he is not on a flight, therefore he's ruled out of Sunday's game irrespective of what happens. I'm just hoping still, Mike, that he is signed and that I can look to strengthen the squad on top of what I've already got.
However, some great news for the club. Late this afternoon, the Breakers were informed a clearance for Apia's Rod Brown should be through tonight, allowing him to play on Sunday. While reasonably happy with the team to face Sydney Olympic in Sydney, there are areas which pose some concern. Ralph Mayer, as of late this afternoon, was still in bed with the flu, but the Breakers will be tackling their assignment in a positive fashion.
I don't like going out for draws because I always think that you're skirting with danger. I'm going out to win, and I think, to be honest, I think Olympic are in similar situations to me, so I'm going out there to win. And I think knowing as well that we can play so much better than we did last week, and the players that were rushed on the park last week, Darren and Jason, have had a week to settle in. I think we can go and do far better than we did last week and maybe come back with a win.
Despite all the doom and gloom, a ray of sunshine. Warren Spink isn't far away from returning to the side.
He trained hard with me last Wednesday. We'll train again tonight. Fingers crossed, could be on the park next Friday, which will be a tremendous bonus and a boost to everybody.
Mayor of Lake Macquarie Doug Carley says the council, the Environment Protection Authority and the Public Health Unit have their hands tied. Preliminary studies have been undertaken, but it's now up to the government to develop a plan of management and allocate funding to clean up Boolaroo. He says Premier Fay has been approached to meet a delegation from Lake Macquarie, but no answer has been received. It's also been 6 months since the Living with Lead document was produced and sent to the Premier, but still no response from the government. Today, Premier Fay denied the government was doing nothing and says important studies are still being done.
I can't anticipate what the outcome will be for Boolaroo or for anywhere else, because I think it is important to make sure that the facts are collated in a proper fashion, and when that occurs, the action plan can follow.
But as far as the Mayor is concerned, all necessary studies have been completed and the delay is affecting the community.
I can't say that it is tomorrow urgent, but it is urgent to this community, and I think that the community deserves an answer.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Newcastle in the light blue strip made the going tough for themselves. Simple things like failing to clear the ball from a goal kick meant the Breakers were constantly on the back foot. Newcastle turned away wave after wave of Sydney attack with some scrambling defence and some great goalkeeping. It's not to say the Breakers weren't mounting raids of their own, but Olympics keeper was sound. Then former Socceroo Peter Catholis celebrated his recall to Sydney with a clever chip. It wasn't a good night for Newcastle, the youth squad also going down 2-0.
The report looks at whether sister city relationships for Newcastle are worthwhile. Newcastle has relationships with 3 cities around the world: Newcastle upon Tyne in Britain, Arcadia in California and Ube in Japan. While no firm conclusions are reached, it does find Ube the most beneficial and recommends that the relationships with Arcadia and Newcastle upon Tyne be reconsidered. The report will be looked at by Aldermen at tomorrow night's meeting. Also on the agenda is a planned visit to Ube by the Lord Mayor, the Deputy Lord Mayor and the General Manager Bill Grant. Alderman John Tate is extremely critical of the idea.
There is no indication as to what the trip is going to cost, and there is certainly no indication as to what the real benefits will be to the ratepayers of Newcastle.
According to Bill Grant, Council's General Manager, the cost of the November trip is around $8,500. He believes it's worthwhile.
I would see during this trip we would discuss some of the longer term future of the sister city relationship, how we can strengthen the cultural, the student visits and commerce and trade links.
Alderman Tate, however, sees the trip as preempting the sister cities report.
I think the discussion paper is there purely to let people know that we're going to have a look at this in the long term, but in the meantime we need to have this trip. Now that's the cart before the horse. If there is going to be a meaningful discussion, we should have that first and then assess that discussion against the benefit of the trip.
It's unfortunate that they are both together, but I don't believe it does preempt the report.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
It's been going on for more than a year, but the public side of BHP's site improvement program is now coming to light, literally. The company has started the final phase of the program, adding a splash of colour to its main buildings at Port Waratah, doing away with the dull, rusty look, BHP has brightened its image, using light blue and grey shades mixed with yellow and red trimming. It coincides with dust reduction schemes, revegetation and the upgrading of amenities. Every building on the site will be painted. The Big Australian says it wants to look as good as the product it sells. Take one look at the site and you realise this is no ordinary housing development. For 6 weeks, the bulldozers have been working at the old colliery. They'll be flattening the site for at least another 10 weeks. Then it'll all start to take shape. 10 hectares of development, incorporating 95 houses, 2 parks and extensive landscaping. Although yet to reach the mine proper, excavation work of the colliery is proving a challenge.
We haven't actually got into any of the actual mining operations, mainly just the surface structures and the footings for those, mainly old concrete structures, and certainly taken some effort to get rid of those.
The developers say they've taken environmental concerns into account, but admit some trees will be cut down. The first stage should be completed by April. Matthew White, NBN News.
A staggering 49 clubs are competing at the two-day country championships, with all levels from 1 to 10 participating. Today, the women's artistic gymnastics levels 1, 2 and 3 were put through their paces on all of the standard apparatuses, with some excellent performances given. 1991 team champions Gunnedah will be out to retain their crown, but will have to fight off strong challenges from last year's runners-up clubs Waratah and Maitland. Tonight, the senior gymnasts take centre stage along with the men, the Jimaroos from Torres and the Rhythmic Sydney 2000 squad. A staggering 49 clubs are competing at the two-day country championships, with all levels from 1 to 10 participating. Today, the women's artistic gymnastics levels 1, 2 and 3 were put through their paces on all of the standard apparatuses, with some excellent performances turned in. 1991 team champions Gunnedah will be out to retain their crown, but will have to fight off strong challenges from last year's runners-up Waratah and Maitland. Tonight, the senior gymnasts take centre stage, along with the men, the Jimaroos from Torres and the Rhythmic Sydney 2000 squad. On Lake Macquarie, a more leisurely pace, due mainly to a lack of breeze. The small sailing club of Crowders Bay may not have the glitter of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, but it doesn't mind. It is celebrating its 25th anniversary in style this weekend. Today it was the Corsairs that kicked off proceedings for a busy weekend of sailing. Crowders Bay is known as the Friendly Club, based on family participation, while at the same time providing the form of non-threatening competition that encourages newcomers to the sport. Tomorrow everyone is welcome to the main event, but it is strictly bring your own boat. And finally, Terry Dozier has won the Newcastle Falcons Most Valuable Player and Best Defensive Player for 1992 after an outstanding season. Veteran guard Al Green picked up the Hot Shot Award. Everett Stevens the award for most assists, and youngster Peter Harvey the most improved player of the year.
To pick up Maharaja, then Garter King and Regal Shalar. The others look to be struggling, headed by our mystery man, but Maharaja kicked. The old boy shot away. 3 lengths on Garter King and Overnight, who can't go on, and Maharaja. I don't think Larry Cassidy wanted to lead, but it worked out pretty well in the end. And Maharaja won, easing up over Garter King and Sports Kingdom.
10 to 1, 8 to 1 and 33 to 1. The unplaced favourite at 5 to 2, Overnight.
History was in tow behind the 18 horses in this year's Harness Classic. Time passed slowly, but mountains were moved in an era when such horses worked in teams or patiently plodded behind the settlers' ploughs. Back then, a horse was measured on a day's work, but for this event, hundreds of hours go into meticulous grooming and the restoration of wagons. Behind this handsome set of Clydesdales, Clyde and Jay, a former country ambulance, the pride and joy of Lance Massey from Narrabri. Fiona Massey rode home in the agricultural implement category with a poison cart. The supreme harness horse was reined in by Noel Hopman of Aberdeen. Ray and wife Cheryl had the glad rags on for a date at the Inverell Cup. Also on hand, 4 of the festival's princess entrants. There's a busy schedule of celebrations ahead, culminating in the Grand Parade next weekend. A great festival is tipped for all, but for punters on the day it was Kerai first past the winning post. On to official duties and the opening of the Inverell Competitive Art Show, reputed for its high standard entries and as a showpiece of the festival.
It's obviously a town where people are prepared to put the hard work in to achieve things, and you see that all over the place.
Winner of the major award, Heather Johns, with the fertility goddess of Cernavoda. Meanwhile, everything's coming up roses in Narrabri, with the inaugural Rose Growers Championship. The New South Wales Rose Society, keen to branch out for fresh fields, hopes to make the show the first of many in Narrabri.
Jeff Bickford was suspended on February 18th along with former Shire Clerk Sess Cotton and Chief Storeman Warwick Armstrong. Earlier, Mr Armstrong had accepted a severance package from the council and resigned. Mr Cotton has now accepted a cash settlement. After months of controversy, the suspended engineer Jeff Bickford today returned to his position and received a warm welcome from fellow staff members.
I'm pleased with the result, yes.
The reinstatement comes after 3 days of negotiations behind closed doors in Sydney. The 3 senior officers were suspended by the council for alleged breaches of conduct after seeking donations from local suppliers for the council's social club. The matter has been the subject of an Ombudsman's report, a local government investigation, and has seen many Shire residents joining in protest rallies calling for the council to be sacked.
I'd like to thank all the many people in the community who've offered me encouragement and support throughout this long affair. I'd like to thank my colleagues in the engineering profession particularly, and the staff of the council who have always maintained their loyalty, and most importantly my wife, who has stood beside me through all the ups and downs of this whole affair. She's been a real backstop.
Shire President Bevan O'Regan has declined to be interviewed over the engineer's reinstatement, saying he can't make a comment until after council meets tomorrow afternoon.
Two bandits raided the store at about midnight, demanding money from a security guard as he left with the assistant manager. Both men were hit over the back of the head, the thieves snatching a money bag and running off. Police say the thieves fled in a late model Falcon or Commodore and were last seen heading along Lindley Street. Police are working on the theory that the same men are responsible for this attack and a recent armed robbery on a Wallsend butcher shop. They point to a number of similarities between the two hold-ups. In the Wallsend raid, more than $10,000 was stolen, the bandits using guns and working as a team in a surprise attack as the shop was opened. The wanted men are described as 175 to 177 centimetres tall, both of medium build and wearing dark clothing and black balaclavas. Matthew White, NBN News.
Trading 24 hours a day has been underway in Sydney for some time, but the concept is new to Newcastle and the Central Coast. Coles stores in Swansea, Wyoming and Waratah will extend shopping hours. Weekdays they'll be open constantly.
People today need us to open so they can use us as a convenience to buy the right groceries at the right price.
All 3 stores reported brisk trading up until midnight last night when it slowed, but Waratah manager Neville Martin is confident it will improve.
The advertising is going to be a big help, and we look forward to the late night trading and the 24-hour service we're going to give the customers.
Up until now, general and convenience stores in the Hunter and on the Central Coast have monopolised the 24-hour market.
And we have quite a lot of industries around here that works dog watch and shift work, and we're expecting those customers.
For 45 hours every week, Kylie Smith of Warners Bay practices here at the Marie Walton Marn Dance School. Kylie has been dancing for 14 and a half years and her hard work is about to pay off. She recently received honours in her advanced exam, thus enabling her to compete in the prestigious Digital Genie Awards in Britain. Joining her will be Jenny Caneen of Saratoga on the Central Coast. She received a highly commended in the exam. Both girls fly out on Christmas Day. Kylie has also been asked to audition for the Australian Ballet School and the Sydney Dance Company. She's keeping her fingers crossed.
If nothing happens, I'm going to stay overseas and try and audition around for a while. And if not, I don't know.
Kylie is likely to do well though here in Australia. The Marie Walton Marn Dance School has been responsible for some of Australia's best dancers, including Jane Finney and Sally Crockett.
Now that the billion-dollar honeysuckle project is going ahead, the Master Builders Association held a dinner meeting last night to brief its members on the redevelopment. Guest speaker was Honeysuckle's development manager, Robert Zulo, who said the project held hopes for Newcastle's future, including reversing the city's falling population rate.
As a region, Newcastle City has been very much on the decline, and I guess this is where we're trying to rectify the problem.
The Master Builders Association saw the meeting as a chance for Newcastle companies to find out how they can be a part of the redevelopment and to assure Mr Zulo this region has all the expertise the project needs. But what the association was told is that Honeysuckle needs private sector investment and developers will be sought from far and wide.
There's no set criteria that we're particularly aiming for local developers first or not. I think at the end of the day there will be opportunities for both local and international or national developers.
Also under question, the future of government funding over the next 4 years for the project. Even though both state and federal ministers signed a $100 million contract for Honeysuckle just a month ago, Mr Zulo says a change in government could see that money dry up.
There's no doubt that that the way the project would progress would be at a slower rate, but that doesn't mean the project would die.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
They headed out on the 125-kilometre leg from Nelson Bay to Singleton. Strong winds provided a quandary for riders. Do they conserve energy for the afternoon trial or try to keep up with the pack? As the day wore on, it was obvious that yesterday's mammoth ride was taking its toll. 2 mountain climbs further separating an already fragmented field. Any chance West Australian Hank Vogels had of winning went out the window. He was grounded with gear failure and vented his frustration on his support team. Fellow Australian Robert McLaughlin won the Singleton stage, but Vogels channelled his anger into the afternoon time trial, a 12-kilometre sprint between power stations at Liddell and Bayswater. Fuelled by fury, he clocked 15 minutes 28 seconds. England's Matthew Illingsworth was third, and that was enough to see him retain the leader's jersey. Tomorrow, a 160-kilometre hike from Muswellbrook to Araring. Anthony Griffiths, NBN News.
RAAF bases at Darwin and Tyndall near Katherine have become the front line in exercise ACES North. Almost 3,000 Australian and US Army and Air Force personnel have arrived for intensive air-to-air and air-to-ground combat training. FA-18 pilots from Williamtown's No. 2 Operational Conversion Unit flew in ready for a torrid time in the tropics. RAAF base Tyndall and the 75 Squadron will come under attack from US F-15 Eagles, just in from Okinawa, accompanied by flying refuelers. Marine Corps Harrier jump jets should prove formidable in combat training as they attempt to pierce low-level RAAF radar surveillance.
This is the area where we try to simulate combat for the students. We provide that stress for them.
6 pilots are also undergoing postgraduate training as fighter combat instructors. Very few make it through to this level of expertise. On the ground, 4 RAF radar operators will be engaged in another battle to become expert fighter combat controllers. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News.
$11-2 Arley Boy, 13-4 in favourite and 6-1. At Randwick, the 6 was the BMW Sydney Handicap over 1,600 metres.
They're called COTS, Kids Off the Streets. Based in Byron Bay, the group is heading to Canberra armed with a solution to the homeless problem. They want the government to donate land for street kids near each major city. They were told it would take 2 years to rejig the welfare system.
So it's 2.5 years have gone by and there haven't been any changes. In fact, the situation has worsened. Long-term housing is very scarce for the children. By then realising that the government cannot do it without the support of the people. So it's time we did it, and now we're walking for land.
On the way, the group is learning to provide for itself, picking up bits and pieces to recycle and creating its own doll through bartering.
So that way we're not dealing with money and we become self-sufficient.
The group will spend the night at Merewether. Tomorrow they'll be back on the streets, continuing their campaign. Matthew White, NBN News. The sounds on the sidewalk may have been sweeter, but the ring of the cash register was just the right note for the retailers. Thousands welcomed the return to bargain shopping in Hunter Street, Best and Less filling an obvious gap left by the closure of Venture. And despite the hordes of shoppers, they still tried anything for a sale.
Put your hands up here, get yourself on telly if you like.
At Raymond Terrace, another opening. Stage 2 of the Terrace Plaza, $1.6 million was spent, adding 12 specialty shops. There are now more than 30 stores in the complex. Another ideal place to spend the recessionary blues away. Matthew White, NBN News.
AIDS is potentially the world's worst killer, its cause and cure a virtual mystery. Since 1989, Dr. Richard Brown has been working with 2 other colleagues from Newcastle University studying the interaction of cells, particularly those related to the AIDS virus. Basically, what they've discovered is how the HIV virus interacts with the body cell it attacks. Their research has important implications.
It can potentially give a handle on new ways of looking at preventing the interaction between the cell and the virus that's targeting it, and therefore perhaps maybe making attempts to foil the virus in its life cycle.
The findings are only on paper. It must now be tested in the laboratory, but the research is already attracting much attention. Jodie McKay, NBN News. The new office is in the Warrabrook Industrial Estate. 3 inspectors will cover the Central Coast, the Hunter and north to Foster. Their job is to test weighing and measuring instruments and to ensure petrol bowsers are working accurately.
The pumps are designed so that as they are used, they tend to wear in favour of the motorist.
It's rare for the inspectors to investigate the fraudulent use of measuring equipment. In most cases, it's from general wear and tear. Each year, the Newcastle office tests more than 5,000 of the estimated 12,000 measuring instruments used for trade in the area. As well as industries, the office will assist the general public.
Any trade who has a scale that hasn't been tested recently, they can bring that scale to us here on Monday mornings between 9 and 12.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.